by the way,
Let me just say hello. Hello, this is Rabbi Tobin, and we're at B'nai Shalom's Monday Talmud class. Today is April 16th, a very soggy April 16th. The creek next to my house is the Kosi Ravaya. It is a cup that runneth over, and we are here nonetheless. So we were just talking, there's a local Talmud class that meets on Tuesdays at Bethel, and David Schachter, who was the organizer of that, was a beloved man. And I would like today's learning to be dedicated in his memory. He was really a good man.
He was from Oed Shalom.
Oed Shalom, sorry.
And his family went all the way back to his great-grandfather was the starting founding rabbi of Oed Shalom. So anyway, this is good information to know. I love to live stream, and I happened to have been in a rehab during high holidays this past year, and I live streamed the services from Central Synagogue in Manhattan, and it saved me. It gave me services for the holidays.
No doubt about it. The live streaming that we do and that other people do allows us to bring Torah and to bring community to places where either people are disabled and unable to attend the local community that they're already a part of, or to have connection to Jewish community if they live in a place without one. It's a miracle, the age that we live in.
It is wonderful.
It is indeed. We are studying chapter 2 of Chagiga, Ein Dorshin, and we are going to get to where we were.
Do you email the material to people?
I do not email the material to people because, while that is a loving act, it is also stone knives and bearskins in the modern age. We have the ability, if they come onto the website, to just click and they can get the page and the assignment on their computers, on their phones, on their tablets.
Okay, so I will bring my tablet from now on.
I also hand out the materials every week that people have.
I find it very difficult to read the copy, but when I have it on my iPad, it's very easy to read.
Yeah, so bring your computer and we'll have it all here. We'll all be on the same page at the same time.
I came late last time. I apologize. I didn't realize how traffic would be. I live in Sparta.
Oh, that's a bit of a drive.
Yes.
I do see that my materials are not here, so I have to go get them. And I'll tell you what page we're on in just a second, unless Bonnie can put you there.
Okay. Well, we
left off on 13.
What tractate is it called?
Hagiga.
Hagiga, and what does that mean?
I have no idea.
Have you studied Talmud in the past?
Not on a regular basis. That's
And
sometimes
when
we'll have
did
it
this
take
class begin?
A couple of weeks ago.
about before Passover.
Oh, yeah, before Purim. I mean, after Purim.
After Purim.
I found out about it from Melita Peckman, whose daughter
Francesca usually comes here, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Melita
All right.
Peckman
We're getting
told me
ourselves
about this.
organized. Here you go. Chagiga.
One side's English, one side's Hebrew.
That's chapter 2. It's not chapter 11. Those are Roman numerals. I'm giving you the Sonsino translation.
Oh, that's the hardest.
Where are we?
Well, it's also the most linear.
13A.
All right, I have us on, as I recall, we just finished all of the Maaseh Breshit stuff, and it got to the quote from the Mishnah about not being able to expound on the Merkavah B'Yachid. So let me just find that
I don't know if he did the work of the chariot in the presence of...
No, that's what I'm talking about. We haven't done that.
Right, I didn't think so. You mentioned it.
We got
So that's
to the
13A.
beginning of it.
It's 13A.
Should be 13A, and it's you're in the Hebrew. We're on page 13A, halfway down the page, and there's a double dot.
Are we on being photographed?
No.
No, what's happening is the live stream is pointed at me, and I'm being photographed. They may hear your voice if you ask a question, but otherwise there's no identifying characteristics for anyone else in the room. Nobody in the room is on the live screen unless you go behind me and get food, because the camera's pointed at me. So directly behind me, if you're getting some of the lunch, which is provided this week free, you're welcome to tell me, and I'll block the camera while you do that.
And last but not least,
Yes.
is this available live only? Or
No, It's archived. It's archived. So if you go to the synagogue's website, you can watch classes that you missed. You can go back and watch any other class I've taught. And then we also move it over to our YouTube channel. So B'naiShalom.net has a YouTube channel, and all of our past classes and archives are there as well.
In the English word.
All right, so in the English,
Where do I look for it?
in the handouts I gave you, you'll see in the top corner it says 13A,
Right?
and we are going to find the one that starts, there is no contradiction. So you have a 13A that starts in the top left with there is no contradiction.
Top left, yeah.
And that's where we are?
Yes. And then on the right-hand side of that page, the paragraph in block that says, nor the work of the chariot in the presence of one.
Which is down here. The last it's the last English paragraph, actually, last short English paragraph.
Okay. In the Hebrew, at the end of the fifth to last of the short lines, the middle column has short lines, medium lines, and long lines. The column that is short lines, fifth to the last from there, you see a double dot.
Yep.
Looks like a colon, and then velo b'merkava b'yachid.
Yep,
Tane Rabbi Chia.
got it.
Okay, so basically what happened, if you recall our Mishnah at the beginning of this chapter said, Ein dorshin, we are not allowed to expound on ba'arayot b'shlosha. We don't do a class about forbidden sexual relationships in the presence of three people. The lo b'maaseh breshit b'shnayim, and not the acts of creation in the presence of two. V'lo b'merkava b'yachid, and not regarding the chariot, the divine chariot, even with a single person. Ela im kain hu hayachacham u'mevim midato. Rather, unless he is already wise enough to be able to understand these matters on his own. And then they got into the discussions that we started with. Now, pages 12A and B really talked about the prohibition of the arayot, the sexual liaisons, and the prohibition regarding creation, and it brought various rabbinic legends about creation. Really what we would call rabbinic cosmology, or mythic cosmology. And that is to say that they were talking about the heavens and the heavens of the heavens and how many levels of the heavens there are. And on one level, there is a physical science aspect to what their understanding was. They really did believe that above the moon and above the sun and below the stars, there were heavenly realms. And they knew this because planets moved within those realms differently than anything else that's up there. And the Torah talks about God sending messengers, and the prophets talk about angels. And in their day, there was a broad belief in angels, and so they had to be somewhere. So in one level, there's a physical science aspect to it, that they thought they were describing literal physical realms that are up there. On another side, and really the main side, it's a very metaphorical realm. They also knew that they were talking about the world of ideas and not the world of physical science. So when they bring a whole bunch of Torah texts that talk about the kavod and what's in front of the kavod, the glory or the honor of God and winds and all this other kind of stuff, they know that the kavod isn't necessarily a physical thing. It's a presence or a power of God that's right near God. When they talk about all the souls of the people who are yet to be born being right there near God in the highest of these heavenly realms, they don't think that you can go into that physically and count souls. Like, they know that they're dealing with a world of ideas. They're dealing with a world of spirit, a world that is not part of the physical sciences. So, you don't want to denigrate the rabbinic understanding of the cosmos just because we know that the universe looks the way it looks, right? Because we have astrophysics, right? And we know what the real natural science up there is, and that we're not going into, between the sun and the stars, we're not passing through a heavenly realm. We're passing through a void of space and dust and stuff like that. So don't like throw the baby out with the bathwater. They knew they were also using metaphor. They knew they were also talking about ideas. They knew that they were talking about bridging the gulf between divinity and humanity and all the powers of God's creation that are at work in between God and us. They knew that, and they would adapt very easily to the knowledge we have. We're really not smarter than them, but they're really not smarter than us, right? You take the tools you have in every generation. Okay, so now they've shifted through the prohibition of the knowing when you can talk and not talk about creation and some of that stuff. And now they quote the next line of the Mishnah, which is v'lo b'merkava b'yachid, that you can't talk about the Merkava. Again, the Merkava is Ezekiel's vision at the beginning of the book of Ezekiel, and we read that quickly last time. Do people remember or roughly have a sense of what Ezekiel's vision was? Or is that something we should quickly review? Okay. So, on the first night of Shavuot, you are going to, or the first day of Shavuot, you're going to read a Haftarah. And it is this vision, the vision of the chariot. This is the most confounding image for anyone who wants to be a literal interpreter of the Bible, of the Torah. And I'm just waiting for my computer to now give me the document I've asked for, which is Ezekiel's vision. Here we go. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. There we go. Okay. In the 13th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, when I was in the community of exiles by the Chebar Canal, this is the exile to Babylonia. So the first temple has been destroyed, and Ezekiel's with the leaders of our people in Babylonia in sore straits. And in this horrible position, he sees a vision of God, which is already astounding, that our God is not just someone who talks at Sinai or exists at the temple, but can travel with us, right? So the heavens open, and he has a vision of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Joachim, and the word of the Lord came to the priest Yechezkel, the son of Buzi, by the Chebar Canal. So there's 2 lines of introduction. And the hand of the Lord came upon him there. And now here's the first person account. I looked, and lo, a stormy wind came sweeping out of the north, a huge cloud and flashing fire, surrounded by a radiance, and in the center of it, in the center of the fire, a gleam as of amber. And in the center of it were also the figures of 4 creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the figures of human beings. However, each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. And the legs of each were fused into a single rigid leg, and the feet of each were like a single calf's hoof, and their sparkle was like the luster of burnished bronze. They had human hands below their wings. The 4 of them had their faces and their wings on the 4 sides. Each one's wings touched those of the others. They did not turn when they moved, and each could move in the direction of any of its faces. Each of them had a human face at the front. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right. Each of the 4 had the face of an ox on the left, and each of the 4 had the face of an eagle at the back. Such were their faces. As for their wings, they were separated above. Each had 2 touching those of the other, while the other 2 covered its body. And each could move in the direction of any of its faces, and they went wherever the spirit or ruach impelled them to go, without turning when they moved. So such then was the appearance of the creatures. With them was something that looked like burning coals of fire. This fire, suggestive of torches, kept moving about among the creatures. The fire had a radiance, and the lightning issued from the fire. Dashing to and fro among the creatures was something that looked like flares. As I gazed on the creatures, I saw, and here's the chariot. I saw 1 wheel on the ground next to each of the 4-faced creatures. As for the appearance of the structure of the wheels, they gleamed like beryl. All 4 had the same form. The appearance and structure of each was as of 2 wheels cutting through each other. And when they moved, they could move in the direction of any of its 4 quarters. They did not veer when they moved. Their rims were tall and frightening, for the rims of all 4 were covered all over with eyes. And when the creatures moved forward, the wheels moved at their sides. And when the creatures were born above the earth, the wheels were born too. Wherever the Spirit impelled them to go, they went, wherever the Spirit impelled them, and the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. When these moved, those moved, and when those stood still, these stood still. And when those were born above the earth, the wheels were born alongside them, for the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. Above the head of the creatures was a form, an expanse, with an awe-inspiring gleam of crystal, was spread above their heads. Under the expanse, each one had a pair of wings extended towards those of the others, and each had another pair covering its body. And when they moved, I could hear the sound of their wings like the sound of mighty waters, like the sound of Shaddai, God, a tumult like the din of an army. And when they stood still, they would let their wings droop. From above the expanse above their heads came a sound, and when they stood still, they would let their wings droop. Above the expanse above their heads was the semblance of a throne. It appeared like sapphire, and on top, upon this semblance of a throne, there was the semblance of a human form. And what appeared from his loins up, I saw as a gleam of amber. What looked like fire encased in a frame, and from what appeared as his loins down, I saw what looked like fire. There was a radiance all about him. Like the appearance of a bow which shines in the clouds on the day of rain, such was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. That was the appearance of the semblance or the presence of the Lord. When I beheld it, I flung myself down on my face, and I heard the voice of someone speaking, and whose prophecy begins. It's quite a setup, right?
Sounds like an LSD trip.
All right, so people will
Fantastic.
talk about psychedelic imagery because there's definitely the morphing of faces and images and movements, and your mind can't really make sense of what he's saying, and the more you try and grasp it, the more elusive it becomes. There's no focus of the visual image, although it seems that you have wheels and feet and beasts and everything, but there seems to be a directedness towards a chariot, a throne, and a form.
It's extremely detailed.
It is extremely detailed, and it is anthropomorphic, which is problematic for later rabbinic voices. Lots of things to be uncomfortable with here, right? This is not like when Moses and the children of Israel stand at Sinai, the earth quakes, fire comes down on the mountain, there's a cloud, there's darkness, there's thunder, and there's the voice of a shofar. That's like nothing compared to this as far as detail and imagery,
Focus.
right? Although that in itself is quite dramatic, right? That was what we would think the overwhelming intrusion of divinity into our existence would look like. For the prophet Ezekiel, he's having a different experience. Okay. The Mishnah has prohibited explaining this image in the presence of more than one person.
Why?
Why? I don't know. Why do you think?
The only one I can think of that makes sense to me is so each person could have their own interpretation.
Why would that be bad if each person had their own interpretation of this image?
That would be
No, I
good.
think that would be good. I think you're-
They don't want each person to have their own interpretation. No,
But
they do?
They do want.
Oh, they don't have a class on it, because if you have a class with a group of people, you'll make some kind of monolithic image of it
Right.
that all the students have to learn and spit back on the exam. And if they have something else, they're told they're wrong. I see. You all had very unhappy Hebrew school experiences.
But it also could be in that it's really just left for your imagination. In other words, it was his image or imagination, and if people talk about it, what you're imagining or what you're thinking then takes form.
Yeah.
What you think in your mind, and it's just kind of in your mind, if you haven't said it, there's a statement somewhere, if it's not written down and it didn't happen, or something like that, but
Right.
if you don't talk about it, then it's still in your mind, it's not gelled, it isn't something you have to
It's
discuss.
not real, right? It hasn't become reality, it hasn't been part of experience in general that other people can share in, right?
It's
I mean,
not a report.
hmm.
I find if you tell someone something or send an email about it, it's a report. It's in writing, or it could be recorded in this day and age. And they didn't want that. If you read it, it's yours. You read it, don't tell anybody.
So there's a strong feeling in the room here that the reader should have power to create the reality in their mind, to have their relationship with divinity through this imagery. That's a very interesting idea. I think that's very modern. In a way, it's kind of a deconstruction of the authority of rabbinic Judaism that is permitted by the space created by this prohibition. This prohibition creates a space that in its classical form would have been, you're not supposed to be studying this stuff, which we have kind of deconstructed in a very modern way and said by not having a strict dogma on this, it actually creates a space for us to engage it even more without limits, which is contrary to the ethos of the Mishnah, but very interesting. Okay, fair enough. So that's the setup. That's what they're worried about. Okay, obviously you have a human image of divinity, highly problematic. You have all kinds of weird stuff they don't know what to do with. Nobody knows what to do with, highly problematic. And then you have all of these images. I mean, you have an eagle and an ox and a human right? These faces that are facing, and a lion, facing this way and that way and this way and that way. And, you know, we don't have animal imagery in our worship. We can have it in the mosaics or in the art of the synagogue, but we don't have it as objects to look upon and think, this is our God. The golden calf is a powerful prohibition story against this kind of imagery, right? So there's a lot to be uncomfortable with. Okay, so Bonnie, would you like to read the English here? Nor the work of the chariot in the presence of two?
Okay. In the presence of two or one? One.
It should be one, but
Yes.
the translation here says two.
Well,
But we have one.
we have one.
Oh, good. Thank God for that. Oh, I'm on the wrong page.
Nor the work of the chariot in the presence of one. Arhia taught, but the headings of chapters may be transmitted to him. Arzera said, the headings of chapters may be transmitted only to the head of a court and to one whose heart is anxious within him. Others say only if his heart is anxious within him. Or Omni said, the mysteries of the Torah may be transmitted only to one who possesses 5 attributes, namely the captain of 50 and the man of rank and the counselor and the cunning charmer and the skillful enchanter. Our Omni further said the teachings of the Torah are not to be transmitted to an idolater, for it is said, he hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his ordinances, they have not known them.
Okay, you want to try and translate the English to English for me?
I thought that was your job.
That's why I get paid the big bucks, right? All right, so, okay, it's the page 13A that begins with there is no contradiction.
Okay.
It is the,
Last paragraph.
I should have numbered these, 1, 2, 3, it's the 4th page from the left.
Okay, one moment.
On the back of the page, on the top left, it says there is no contradiction.
It's the first 13A.
Yeah, I found it.
Okay, and on the bottom right, where it says B in the margin, the little B in the margin is the
Yes.
paragraph we just read.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? All right, very good. So it goes like this. So it quotes, we may not do Maaseh Merkavah in the class of even one student, and Rabbi Chia comes in to teach a Baraita. It's Tane Rabbi Chia. Tane means he brings a Baraita. Remember, a Baraita is Mishnah age teaching that's not in the Mishnah. So it has the same authority as the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi didn't put it in the Mishnah, but it doesn't mean it loses its authority. It's from the same age of teacher. Okay, so Rabbi Chia brings us in, and he says, Aval Mosrim Lo Roshei Prakim. So he would amend the Mishnah a little bit, and you say, Velo b'merkava b'yachid, Aval Mosrim Lo Roshei Prakim. He would add that. So you'd say you can't teach the Merkava in the presence of one, but you may transmit to him chapter headings. Presumably, he would put that in, Ela im kem hu ya chacham. He wouldn't put that limitation on the chacham. If somebody's a chacham, you're allowed to just study the thing with him, right? So this is the one who's not a chacham, who is a yachid, who you're not supposed to study it with, and you can kind of give him hints. You can put him on the road. Here's a chapter heading. Say, you know what? Here's a chapter from Ezekiel. You can read this. Here's a chapter from Isaiah. You can read this. Here's a chapter from Devarim. You can read this. If you read these things, you might put it all together and get a true understanding of what this thing is. And if you kind of put it together and you want to come talk to me about it, you know when my office hours are, right? And so if this student takes the chapter headings and becomes a chacham who mevim, who understands of his own, then you're off and running. So you can prime the pump. You don't have to leave people, in ignorance until they have some insight that comes from the heavens, right? You can give them hints. You can send them on the right road. Ulechol mi shelibo doeg b'kirbo, and anyone whose heart worries within him. What does that mean?
That he's anxious.
Someone who's uncomfortable with it?
So it could be somebody who's like, who this bothers them. Like they're having a hard time with this Merkava thing. They're sitting there in shul on Shavuot, and they just read the Haftarah, and it's bugging them. And they couldn't eat the Kiddush, and they go home and they couldn't talk to their kids. It's bugging them.
So that really refers to somebody whose head it sticks in and is in a negative sense or in a positive sense?
I think in this sense you teach him a little more than you otherwise would, because you're trying to put him at ease. You're trying to say, you know, this is not rampant Babylonian idolatry.
Right, okay.
Right? Or whatever the thing is. You know, creatures, four-faced creatures are not going to come at you out of the sky and destroy you. You know, whatever the fear is that the person is having when they read this stuff, this is powerful stuff. We're not supposed to just read it and go, wow, that's a psychedelic acid trip. This guy must have really had a tough day. We're supposed to read this and say, this is real.
Right.
This comes from God. We need to know this. And if it goes right into the category of this is real, well, this is a little scary and troubling and contrary to our other theological understandings and et cetera, et cetera. And it
Even understanding of science.
it should bug you. Right. So the rabbis are, if it bugs him, if it's doeg bilibo, then you can teach him a little more. Yeah.
Torah, I thought, was the basis here. Ezekiel, they knew was a prophet,
Yes?
and that was put into the writings, that was not into the Torah. And they didn't want to separate out what information did they include once they included the entire canon, everything became Torah?
Okay, so we have a question about what's Torah. Because in the Tanakh, the Hebrew scripture, there are three categories. Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Torah is 5 books of Moses. Ezekiel is in actually the prophets, not the writings. So the prophets are people who received direct communication from God. So Moses is the greatest of the prophets, so the 5 books of Moses are the greatest of the prophecies, but the books of the prophets themselves are also holy writ. They are also sacred. And so they are also interpreted as God. So in the general sense, anything that is Jewish learning about our texts and our relationship with God is Torah. Right? When you study halacha, it's Torah, you know, and if you have a very expansive mode, you might think that when you read Amos Oz, it's Torah, right? That would be an extremely open interpretation because he uses Jewish imagery and biblical imagery and he'll bring text within his stuff, but obviously he doesn't have a religious agenda, right? So somewhere between just the books of Moses and Amos Oz, you have, everybody has a different place where the word Torah ends, but I think Torah does include much more than the 5 books. And for the rabbis, Torah can mean anything that's instruction from God. You know, like in Pirkei Avot, it's Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, right? It doesn't say Moshe Kibel et ha-Torah Misinai. It doesn't say Moses received the Torah at Sinai. It says Moses received Torah at Sinai. There's a difference. The Torah is the books. Torah means instruction. The word means instruction. So Moshe Kibel instruction from Sinai.
Which means it could be more.
Or less.
That's true.
It could be more general. So, you know, when traditional voices want to say that something that's not in the Torah is from Sinai, they'll say, oh yes, that word Torah includes that. But when they want to say, oh no, you can't do like, you know, biblical criticism or something, they'll say it means the Torah. How can you do that? So based on which moment they're in and what they're trying to include and exclude, like a Kabbalah person is going to try and include Kabbalah in the Torah he received at Sinai. Whereas an academic of religion is going to see Kabbalah as an invention of the 15th, 16th century in Spain for the most part, so it would never have been handed to Moses at Sinai, right? So different people are going to argue over what they think is sacred, and they're going to use that word Torah. How they define Torah is going to indicate where they are on those topics. Fair enough? It's a litmus test.
Can we do a class about Kabbalah?
About Kabbalah, it's not my expertise.
No? Oh, well.
I brought a guy from the seminary a couple of years ago who
I
gave a
remember.
lecture, Fishbane, who gave a weekend or a lecture on Kabbalah. It was well attended. I consider Kabbalah a midrash. Right? It's a legitimate midrash.
Story.
It's a mode of interpretation of the Torah. It's a faithful, legitimate Jewish mode of interpretation of the Torah. But I don't think that it reveals higher and more secret, more pure truths about reality. I don't think that's how God works. I think God is a transparency guy. Right? but there's a whole theology. I mean, it's a whole other thing. Okay, let's go on. Let's stick to the topic at hand. So you can give chapter headings. Ikeda Amre. There are some say that Rabbi Zera is teaching about the chapter headings. That's not in the piece. I'm just telling you that's what they're talking about. V'hu shelibo doeg b'kirbo, as long as the person whose heart worries him, who would that be? Right? Amar Rabbi Ami. Wait a minute. Where's my Beit Din? I skipped something. There it is. Ein mosrim Moshe prakim ela la'av Beit Din. That's Rabbi Zera. Okay? So Rabbi Zera says you only give the chapter headings to the head of a Beit Din, a rabbinical court, and then to anyone whose heart so worries him. And then there are some who say that Rabbi Zera is saying that the person whose heart worries him has to be the Av Beit Din. Like, you might not even give the chapter headings to the Av Beit Din unless he's a doeg. So instead of having this concept of anybody, it's more expansive. This Ika da Amre, the interpretation of Rabbi Zera, actually makes it much more restrictive, right? So there's a back and forth tension going on here in the interpretations about, are you going to open the doors a little bit and have more people drawn to these teachings, or are you going to close the door, and make the exceptions really, really almost exceptions that prove the rule that you should not be studying this? Right? And that seems to be where most of the thrust of this page is going to go. Rav Ami Amar, right? So what is Amar Rav Ami? He says, Ein mosrim sitrei Torah ela lami sheyesh bo chamisha devarim. You can't transmit secrets of the Torah. Okay? So obviously he's thinking that the Maseh Merkavah is a sitrei Torah. It's a secret of the Torah. There's a secret teaching in here. And that's why you can't teach it. So that's a different approach. One idea is that it's a dangerous teaching. One idea is that it's a confusing teaching. One idea was that it would limit people's potential understandings and relationship with God. That was the modern interpretation we came up with. Rav Ami is saying, oh, no. The prohibition is because there are secret, hidden, esoteric teachings. And of course, this is where the Kabbalah guys are going to come in here and say, aha, and we know what they are.
So is it just, so then it has to get transmitted from one generation, you don't just, or the rabbis, so the knowledge gets transmitted over generations? Even if they don't want,
somehow,
the lonely schlepper on the street.
How are you going to, if you have a secret that you can't tell, but you don't want it to be lost, you have to tell.
Exactly.
And you have to figure out who and how and when and where to tell it in a way that the secret will be kept secret. Because once it's not a secret, it's just stuff.
It's just stuff.
Right. So he says you can't give Sitrei Torah unless the person has 5 attributes. So this is how you pick who to tell it to. So it's first one is Sar Chamishim Unesu Fanim, a captain of 50. So this is like a leader of men, right? Trusted with responsibility, a respected person, Yoetz v'chacham v'roshim v'navon lachash, an advisor, a teacher of the wise, and a comprehender of mysteries. Navon lachash, he understands whispers.
Wait, the teacher of what? That's not what they put in here.
Yoetz chacham charashim v'navon lachash. So chacham charashim, what does Sassino call it?
The cunning charmer.
Ooh, I like that. I was looking at a translation, which I understand why they wouldn't do it, which came from the Art Scroll there for a second.
What was the Art Scroll?
The cunning charmer, they want to be a teacher of the wise.
Well, which is more correct?
Cunning charmer. The words mean cunning charmer. Teacher of the wise is how Rashi interprets that, right? A yoetz is an advisor. That's usually political. So a leader of people, an advisor to the powerful, a cunning, a charmer, and someone who understands whispers. Okay, so obviously you're going to have different people's lack of comfort with those kinds of activities, and they're going to reinterpret those things. All right, so Rav Ami, regarding the transmission of knowledge, has another teaching. So this is what the Talmud often does. Remember, we had a question. The question is, do we really not teach to one? Rabbi Chia said you can teach him chapter headings, and Rabbi Zera said only if he's an Av Beit Din and his heart is bothered. Ikeda Amre, some other people said that the only person who you can teach to whose heart bothers has to be the Av Beit Din. And by the way, Rav Ami said you can't teach secrets of the Torah unless it's one of these five, a guy has these 5 characteristics. So you see kind of train of thought how the Gemara got to this point. Now the Gemara stops and does what it often does. Like the Gemara has ADD sometimes. It's like, ooh, shiny. Now that I said, oh, Rav Ami, I know something else Rav Ami said. Right? And that's what happens here. So Amar Rav Ami, and Rav Ami has also said, Ein mosrim divrei Torah le'over kochavim. And you can't teach words of Torah to an idolater. Okay? A star worshiper, literally. But that means somebody who worships pagan theology, pagan gods. Shene'emar, lo asachen l'chol goy mishpatim bal yida'om. And for it says, he did not do so for any other nation, such laws they shall not know them. So basically the concept is the stuff given to Jews, it's only for Jews, and somebody who worships other gods should not be given what has been given to Jews. So that's Rav Ami. So Rav Ami says you don't teach secrets unless it's 5 characteristics, and you don't teach words of Torah at all to a heretic. Everyone with me? Okay. So, that having been said, we move on. The Gemara relates an incident that demonstrates the reluctance of an Amora to study Maaseh Merkavah. So now we're going to, this concept of studying the Merkavah, which we started with a Tana, Mishnah age quote, we're now moving to post-Mishnah age, early level Gemara, the Amoraim. Rav Yochanan said to Rav Elazar, Ta, notice it's Aramaic, and Amora is always going to be talking in Aramaic. Ta and Agmarach b'maaseh hamerkava. Come and I will teach you. By the way, look in the Hebrew, if you can look at the Hebrew. Ta Agmara. Do you want to look in the Hebrew or not? Is that helpful for this crowd? All right, so it on the middle length lines, halfway down the page, the 4th line starts with the word Elazar. You're in the right place. 4th long line there.
Yep.
Elazar, ta agmarcha. Look at the word agmarcha. Or agmarach is even better Aramaic. Agmarach. The aleph is ani, I will. The root is gamar. And the suffix is ch, you. Lecha, to you. Okay? Agmarach. So the root is gamar. What does gamar mean in Aramaic? You're going to kick yourselves. Lamad in Hebrew. To study, to learn. As in the Gemara. Right? Talmud is Gemara, Mishnah and Gemara. Gemara means the teaching. Here's the word to teach. Ta, come. Like in the Haggadah, ta, shma, come and learn. Ta agmarach, come and I will teach you Maaseh Merkavah. Now, is Rabbi Yochanan allowed to teach Rav Yochanan allowed to teach Rav Elazar the Maaseh Merkavah? Is he permitted to do that?
If he meets those 5 qualities.
If he has those 5 qualities, Rav Ami would permit it. And the Mishnah would require...
If he was really bothered by it.
If he's an Av Beit Din and he's Doeg Bilibo, Rav Zera would permit it. Right? And if he's a Mevin Midato, one who understands of his own accord, the Mishnah would permit it. Okay? So we've already had, very quickly, 3 different systems for trying to permit who you would be allowed to do this with, which is classic because the Mishnah says you can't do this. So our question is immediately, okay, then who can we do it with? Right? And we're going through and we're coming up with systems. All right, so this is a problem because he seems to be freely inviting somebody to come and study something which has this discomfort around it. So Amarle, Elazar says back to him, Lo kashai, I'm not a koshesh, I'm not an old enough person. Right? I'm not old enough. Right. So kikash, so when he became an older person, nach nafshe de Rabbi Yochanan died. Right? So Rabbi Yochanan was ready to teach Rav Elazar the secrets of the Merkavah, but Elazar, in a pious moment, said, I'm too young. And he waited until he was older and he wanted to learn, but Rav Yochanan died. You can't, wait forever. This is what happens, right? To have your conversations today, folks. I'll talk to them when I'm older. No.
Snooze-a-loose.
That's right. That's right. So Amar le Rabbi Asi. So Rabbi Asi comes to Elazar and he says, Ta, Agmarach b'Maaseh Merkava. Come, I would teach you the Maaseh Merkava. Amar le, Elazar said to him, Izachai, if I would have merited Gemirta mi Rabbi Yochanan Rabach, I would have learned it for Rabbi Yochanan, your teacher. So Rav Asi is the student of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? So the student of Rabbi Yochanan, who clearly Rabbi Yochanan is comfortable teaching this stuff, he taught it to Asi, he wanted to teach it to Elazar. Elazar waited until he was older, Rav Yochanan died, so Rav Asi comes and goes, look, he taught me, let me teach you. And what's his answer? If God had wanted me to learn it, he would have kept Rav Yochanan, your teacher, alive to teach me. He took him when I was old enough to learn because he doesn't think I merit learning. How Jewish is that? It's okay. I don't deserve to know it. God took him from me. I don't deserve to know it. I mean, I'm being funny and melodramatic, but there's actually a piety to it that is also lovely, right? There's a poignancy to this knowledge, right? There's clearly he's longing for it. I don't think he's not like the 15-year-old, clean your room. I can't, I'm doing homework, right? They give you a really good reason, but it's really not a good reason, right? So he's not like giving excuses. I think that he values the knowledge. All right, so then what? Now we're going to get another incident, all right? So Rav Yosef, Hava Gemir Maaseh Merkava. So Rav Yosef was Gemir, which is very interesting. Gemir in Aramaic is the Lamud form. So it means learned, like Baruch is blessed. So you have in Aramaic, you have in the Kaddish, Yit Barak v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh v'yit tadar v'yit alei v'yit halal shemei dekudisha brich hu. What is that form brich? It's the exact same vowels as the word gemir here. Brich, gemir are the same form. Baruch, blessed. Gemir is learned. From gemar, to learn and to teach. All right? So Rav Yossi have a gemir maaseh b'merkava. He was really learned in the maaseh merkava. Save de fumbedita havutanu b'maaseh bereshit. The elders, the sabtas and sabtas, the elders of Pumbedita, which is one of the two great academies of Talmud learning in Babylonia, had learned Maaseh Breshit. Amrule, and they said to him, to Rav Yosef, who was an expert in Merkava, Ligamur lan mar Maaseh Merkava. The master should please teach us Maaseh Merkava. What's the problem with that? Rav Yosef is completely learned in Merkava. The elders of the greatest yeshiva of Talmud study in the world know Maaseh Breshit cold, but they want to learn Merkava. And they say, you come, you teach us, the elders of the yeshiva of Pumbedita, you teach us Merkava. What's the problem?
You can't teach more than one.
Can't teach more than one. He can't come teach the elders. He could come teach one elder if the person already understands. Or if he's an Av Beit Din who's Doeg, according to Rabbi's, right? You can go down the list of the qualifying characteristics, but he can't come and give a lecture to the faculty of Pumbedita. Right? So what's he going to do? What's he going to say? But how is he going to say no to them? Right? I mean, they're the head of all Judaism in the world at this time. Amar Laho, he says to them, Agmarun li Maaseh Breshit. So you should teach me first Maaseh Breshit. Batar de Agmarun Amrule, and after they did teach him, they said to him, Ligmarun mar b'maaseh merkava. Now teach us maaseh merkava. Amar loho, he said to them, Tanina baho. But we've learned in a baraita, Devash v'chalav tachat lishonech. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Devarim hamitukim midevash v'chalav yichu tachat lishoncha. Things that are as sweet as honey and milk should remain under your tongue. All right. So what's he saying? He says, honey and milk are under your tongue. Things that are as sweet as honey and milk should remain under your tongue. He's being cute. He's not saying no, because that's not how you talk to the elders of Pumbedita. But what's he saying? I'm going to ask you, hey, you know what? You know something about so-and-so in the community, and I'd really like you to tell me. I'll tell you something you want to know, and now that I told you, you tell me something that I want to know. And you say, loose lips sink ships.
Right.
Right? Or my favorite little toy with this is, hey, can you keep a secret? So can I. Right? So he's giving this thing like, you know how you want to take a piece of candy that you really love and you want to just keep it there under your tongue forever? You should keep it there under your tongue forever, right? That's what he's saying about this knowledge, right? So we have two stories now of fairly important people who have the ability to convey Maaseh Merkavah, but either refuse to receive it or refuse to teach it.
So why didn't they compromise? He could just teach it to one elder.
Right, and
But
then
they
he could
could've
teach it to
elected,
one, and he
yeah.
could teach it to one, and he could
Yeah.
teach it to one, right?
But it doesn't mean you can't teach it to more than one person. You can only teach to one person at a time.
I think what's happening here, and it's a cultural issue, and now we're going to read Talmud for sociology. The sociology of this topic is, this is not for the classroom. This is for the Rav Talmid, the sage-disciple relationship. This is handed from teacher to student. This isn't passed around at the faculty convention. This is not published. This is not a dissertation to be defended in front of 3 people. This is something that is handed on in the intimacy of the sage-disciple relationship. So Yochanan taught Asi. Yochanan would have taught Elazar. But Elazar will not learn from Asi because Asi is not his teacher. The rabbis of Pumbedita say, come and teach us this knowledge. And he comes and says, first you need to teach me Breshit, of which there's no prohibition. And they teach him. And then they say, teach us Merkavah. And he says, can't do it. Because they're not his students. Breshit can be taught in public. Merkavah can only be taught to your student in private. And your best student at that.
So he's a cunning charmer.
He's a cunning charmer. This is how you talk. You're like, I don't know if any of you are like J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit.
Yes.
So there's a wonderful scene in The Hobbit where Bilbo Baggins is talking to the dragon Smaug. And he's talking in kind of riddles and parables and metaphors, and Tolkien observes, of course, that is the way you have to talk to dragons, if you don't want to be eaten. Right? So there are ways that you talk to the Chachamim if they want something and you're not willing to give it to them. Right? All right, now we're going to get another. This is going to be now the same Baraita, which we just learned about chalav and milk under your tongue, but it's going to be coming from a different source. Rabbi Abahu Amar Mehacha. Rabbi Abahu said that the proof is from this verse, and it is Kivasim lelevushecha, let the lambs be your clothing, which is a verse from Proverbs 27:26, and in its own context, it means, have a peaceful and a soft demeanor. Let the lambs be your clothing. Devarim shehem kiv shono shel olam yihu tachat livushecha. Things that are a mystery, kiv shono, of the universe, should remain under your clothes. Let the lamb be your clothing. In other words, have this very docile, soft, palatable exterior, and let the secrets stay within. Right? So he's going to say that's where the prohibition comes from. Remember, we've been having a very hard time in this chapter finding minahane mile. What is this prohibition based on in anywhere in Tanakh? Right? Remember at the beginning of the chapter, they kept asking minahane mile, where do these words come from? And the best we came up with was Ben Sira. Right? So they're still at it. Now we've got a verse about lamb's clothing from Proverbs. Not a classical source of power in a halakhic argument. Right? All right. The Gemara now goes back to the original incident of Rav Yosef in front of the elders of Pumbedita. Amrule, they said to him, Tanina beho ad vayomer Eli ben Adam. So he said, look, we've already learned the Baraitas of Maaseh Merkavah up until the verse, and then he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet. So, Ezekiel chapter 2. He said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet. So the first chapter of Ezekiel, which I read to you earlier in the class, they're claiming to already know. Say, look, you can teach us. It's not like we don't know the first chapter of Ezekiel. We've already been taught all about it. Devrim shehem kiv shono shel olam yiyu tachet levushacha. That was Rabbi Bauer. Sorry, here we go. And then he said, and then Amar lahu, Rav Yosef said to them, well, hein maaseh merkavah. Well, those are the maaseh merkavah. You don't need me to teach you. If you're because they're trying to claim that Eli imken hayachacham v'mevim midato. They're trying to claim we already know enough for you to teach us. It's okay. We're in that category. And he says, oh, well, look, if you know so much, then you don't need me. The cat and mouse game continues.
It sounds like
Right? All right. Now, Rav Yossi's definition of the Merkavah gets challenged. So they're going to say Meitveh. They challenge it. They're going to bring a Mishnah-age teaching to challenge the idea that the first chapter of Ezekiel is all there is to the Maaseh Merkavah. They know there's more to it. And they're going to try and prove to him that they know there's more to it. Ad hecha Maaseh Merkavah. Until what point of the book of Ezekiel is it the Maaseh Merkavah that we're not allowed to teach in public? Rabbi Omer. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the editor of the Mishnah, says, Ad va'era batra, until it says the last occurrence of the words, I saw. So when he says, I saw, back in chapter 1, the last time the word I saw shows up is verse 27. From what appeared as his loins up, I saw a gleam of amber, what looked like a fire encased in flame. And as I looked upon his loins down, I saw what looked like a fire, and there was a radiance all about him. So they're saying the prohibition at the Maaseh Merkavah that you're not allowed to teach is everything up to I saw, which leaves only one verse from chapter 1 that you're allowed to talk about, which is, like the appearance of a bow which shines in the clouds on the day of rain, such is the appearance of the abounding radiance. That was the appearance in the semblance of the presence of the Lord, and when I beheld it, I flung myself down on my face. That's all you can talk about. Not very helpful. All right? So they have a teaching for Rabbi Yehuda Nasi that says Maaseh Merkavah is up until this point. Right? So what's the point? Rabbi Yitzchak says ad chashmal. He says no. It's only up until the word chashmal, which is earlier when it's talking about the flashings back and forth of lightning. That's where the modern Hebrew picks up the word for electricity. Chashmal is from this. Obviously, it didn't mean electricity in the original context. Okay? Which would have been much earlier, which would have stopped the Maaseh Bereshit talk earlier in the chapter. Okay? Now, the Gemara is going to explain that Baraita according to Rav Yosef's view, which is that the whole chapter is Maaseh Merkavah. Ad ve'era magmrinan, until that I saw, you may teach normally. Mikan ve'elach masrinan roshe prakim. And from then on, we may only transmit chapter headings. All right? So this Baraita is going to have a different idea. Up until the I saw, he's letting you teach normally. And it's only the I saw stuff that's problematic. Right? Because when he's describing what I saw, particularly the image on the throne on the Merkavah. That's the heart of the matter. Is it from the lightnings and the firings going up, or is it just the image on the throne? Either way, it's the central part of this image that is not to be expounded upon. So Rabbi Yosef is like, look, you studied the beginning, you studied the end, you saw the middle, you know what you need to know. And they're saying, no, it's like the whole chapter is Maaseh Merkavah. And he says it's not the whole chapter. That's what they're arguing. Ikeda Amrei. And there are some that say that this Baraita should be Ad Va'era Masrina and Roshei Prakim. Rather, that is up until the Chashmal, you may transmit major headings of topics, Mikan ve'elach, but from then on, Im hu hayachacham mevim mida'ato in. it's only in the middle section. So you can teach normally up to Chashmal, and then you can only teach the Chacham in the middle, and lo. So if he's not, then not. If he's not a Chacham, then no, you can't teach. Now the Gemara is going to say, Umi derashinan bechashmal. How are we allowed to expound on the word Chashmal? So Chashmal is the point where you have to stop talking. Do you have to stop talking after the word Chashmal? Or can you talk about the word Chashmal? Okay?
That was I'm just pushing the limits.
Exactly. It's my 15-year-old kid. Vaha, right? Vahahu Yenuka de Darash Bechashmal. There was this youth who expounded the word Chashmal. V'nafkanura v'achalte. And a fire came out and burned him. Ate him up. So they're saying, no, we know a story about somebody who was too young for this knowledge, who was doing a drasha about Chashmal, and like Nadav and Abihu, Aaron's sons in the temple, with the fire comes out and consumes them, a fire came out and consumed him. So we learn from this that you should always bring marshmallows to Talmud class.
And a stick.
That Chashmal is part of the forbidden words. And that says, Shanu Yanuka, Delav Mate Zimne. A youth is different. He's not old enough to study this stuff. So that's the answer to this question. So the question is, you can't do Chashmal because there was a kid who once taught about Chashmal and he got burned up by divine fire. And the answer is, no, it's not that he taught Chashmal, it's that he was a kid teaching Chashmal. If I'm an older guy, I can study Chashmal. I'm mature enough. I'm not in danger of the fire. Amar Rav Yehuda.
So Rav Eliezer was right, not learning way back, waiting for the rabbi.
Right, Rabbi Elazar, who said, I'm not old enough, that's this same thing. So we have this kind of repeating theme of you need to be prepared to study this stuff. And now we've interjected into it that it's not just a prohibition, but there's a danger. Dun, dun, dun.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
The difference here is this child was trying to teach it, not just learn it.
The Darash Bechashmal, he was expounding regarding Chashmal. Okay. Maybe if he had been listening, he wouldn't have gotten burned up.
I think so.
I think once people are getting burned up, it's metaphor. Right? But okay, it's 1:00. So I have a promise to the structure of the class that we start at 12 and end at 1. So because Talmud never really ends, and there's very seldom going to be a good time to stop. But we did make it almost down to the bottom of 13a, and we'll pick up with Amar Rav Yehuda on 13a next time. And that's next week. We're on for next Monday at 12:00. Bye.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.